The first thing Commander Virex noticed when the reinforcement fleet dropped out of slip space was the silence. No weapons fire. No emergency beacons. No screaming calm traffic flooding the void like it should have. Just the shattered remains of an entire battlefield, frozen in orbit around the scorched moon of Keros. 9. Virex's frills tightened against his skull, a reflex older than fear. The Kerosi moon had been declared a lost position 3 cycles ago. Intelligence had been clear. The human garrison was overrun. The enemy coalition, 3 species strong, had outnumbered them 12-1. Reinforcements had been delayed by political debate, logistical gridlock, and the assumption that, well, humans died like everyone else. They had arrived only to recover bodies. Scan for survivors, Virex ordered quietly. Sensor Officer Thalen paused. Commander, I'm not detecting any active enemy life signs. Virex turned. And the humans? Another pause. Longer this time. 1. The word echoed in the bridge. 1. Virex repeated. Confirm. Thalen's voice dropped an octave. Confirmed. 1 human life sign. Surface level. Minimal shelter. Surrounded by, sir, I don't even know how to categorize this many dead. The main display shifted, zooming toward the moon's surface. What had once been a fortified city was now a graveyard. Enemy war machines lay torn open like carcasses picked clean by scavengers. Plasma scorches overlapped kinetic craters in chaotic layers, as if the ground itself had been pounded in rage rather than strategy. The city walls were gone, not breached, but pulverized. And beyond them, thousands of bodies. Virex had fought in 6 major campaigns. He had never seen slaughter like this. Deploy a landing team, he said. Medical unit first. The human had made his stand in what used to be the city's transit hub. The roof was gone. The walls were half collapsed. The air still smelled of burned metal and ozone, mixed with something darker, iron, ash, and time. Lieutenant Mara Hayes sat on a broken column at the center of it all. She was still standing when they arrived, not because she was upright, but because her legs refused to fold. Her armor was unrecognizable. The white and blue plating of the Terran Expeditionary Corps was scorched black, patched with enemy alloys welded in place as makeshift repairs. One shoulder hung uselessly, fused solid. Her helmet was gone, revealing a face caked in dried blood and dust, eyes sunken but alert. She was holding a rifle that no longer belonged to any known species. It had been rebuilt. Again. And again. When the landing team approached, weapons lowered, she raised the rifle anyway.
Stop, she said.
Her voice was hoarse, barely more than a rasp, but it carried authority. Virex stepped forward slowly, hands visible. Lieutenant Mara Hayes, he said, reading from the translation overlay. We are allied forces. Reinforcements. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a broken sound. Sharp. Almost painful to hear. Reinforcements, she repeated. Huh. Her knees finally gave out. She collapsed, but even then, she kept the rifle pointed outward, fingers steady on the trigger. Medics rushed in.
She didn't resist.
3 days earlier, the last transmission from Keros, 9 had been simple. Enemy breach confirmed. Outer defenses failing. Civilians evacuated. We will hold. That had been Lieutenant Hayes' voice, calm and professional. By the second day, the transmission stopped. What no one knew, what no one had expected, was that Hayes had survived the breach. And then another.
And another.
The enemy coalition had believed the humans broken once their command structure collapsed. They advanced in waves, confident in numbers and technology. They had never studied human history. Hayes' unit had numbered 32 at the start. By the end of the first assault, there were 12. By the second, 6. By the third, she was alone. She dragged the wounded as far as she could. When they died, she took their ammunition, their weapons, their armor components. She learned fast which enemy gear could be repurposed and which would explode if you looked at it wrong. Sleep became optional. Pain became background noise. When her comm unit shattered, she stopped trying to call for help. Instead, she started preparing. She collapsed tunnels, redirected transit rails into kinetic traps, overloaded power conduits so they'd arc the moment enemy shields dropped. She learned the rhythms of their advance, the way they hesitated when things went too quiet. So she made things very quiet. The enemy commanders sent drones. She shot them down. They sent infantry. She bled them. They sent war machines. She lured them into narrow streets and killed them one by one, climbing wreckage with broken ribs and firing until her hands shook too badly to reload without bracing against stone. When her rifle overheated, she used enemy plasma casters. When those ran dry, she used grenades. When she ran out of grenades, she used knives. When knives broke, she used her hands. The coalition had expected a final stand. What they got was a slow, methodical extinction. Commander Virex reviewed the combat logs reconstructed from sensor data and Hayes' armor telemetry. The room was silent except for the scrolling kill markers. This can't be right, Thalen whispered. Virex didn't answer. According to the data, Hayes had engaged continuously for 71 hours. Her heart rate never dropped below combat levels. She sustained fractures, burns, internal bleeding, and kept moving. Pain suppressants had run out halfway through the second day. After that, she fought on adrenaline and will. Enemy casualties exceeded 9,000. Entire battalions wiped out by a single human who refused to retreat. Virex finally understood the silence they had arrived to. The enemy wasn't regrouping. They were dead. When Hayes woke in the medical bay aboard the flagship, the first thing she asked was, "Did any of them get away?" The medic hesitated. Virex stepped forward. "No," he said gently. "None." She nodded once and closed her eyes. Relief, not exhaustion, finally pulled her under. During her recovery, news spread across the fleet, then across Allied space, then beyond. Footage of the battlefield leaked. Analysts tried to explain it with tactics, terrain, and probability curves. No explanation satisfied. Eventually, the truth settled in its simplest form. The human had decided the battle would end there. And so it had. The coalition's surrender came a week later. No demands. No conditions. Just a single message, broadcast on every frequency. "We will not fight the humans again." At the signing ceremony, Hayes stood beside Commander Virex, her arms still in a brace, her posture rigid out of habit. An alien diplomat glanced at her and swallowed. "Lieutenant, why didn't you retreat?" She considered the question. "Because," she said, "there was nowhere left to fall back to." Virex watched their faces pale at the implication. Humans didn't fight until they won. They fought until there was nothing left to lose. Later, when Hayes returned to Earth, she visited a quiet memorial overlooking the sea. 31 names were etched into the stone. She touched each one. The war moved on. Politics resumed. Borders were redrawn. But among the stars, a new doctrine spread, unwritten, unspoken, but universally understood. If humans say they will hold a line, believe them, because by the time help arrives, the battlefield will be silent, except for one human still standing.